The time is just gone 8:41 a.m. on Wednesday night. Salam Media were in conversation, myself personally, on our show Wednesday night with Night Wadi with Zunaid Moti in terms of what has been playing out in the courts and just to get an understanding as to what the issues were all about. And this is where we were in conversation with Zunaid Moti. And subsequently, we have received a response from amaBhungane, and this is what we are doing this morning. We are giving amaBhungane a right of reply, and the message that had come through via our COO, Chief Operation Officer Ponti Molatsani, who forwarded this message through to me, was from amaBhungane and from Sam Sol, and this is the reason why we are talking with Sam Sol this morning, saying that let me get back to you today with a decision. The conversation you conducted doesn't fill me with confidence. Essentially, Zunaid Moti, good Muslim, amaBhungane, bad racist thieves who write tabloid journalism directed by Western interests. I think if you had done some research, you would have found that even in the Muslim community, the picture of Mr. Moti is not quite so rosy, but he was treated like a hero on your show, like a role model. Now, this was a message that came through from Sam Soul, and this is the reason why we are talking to Sam Soul, giving him a right of reply to the discussion, to the conversation we had with Zunaid Moti. Sam, good morning to you, and welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Mr. Wadi.
Yes, Sam, just to begin with, now clearly there are a number of issues that you have raised in this message that you had forwarded to our COO of the company. And upfront, you speak about a conversation or the conversation that was conducted that doesn't fill you with confidence. Why doesn't it fill you with confidence?
No, look, so just to correct, I was offered a right to reply even before the broadcast of the interview with Mr. Moti that your organization reached out to me. Having then watched the interview, that was the response I sent, saying it was we'd have to think about it because it was a very friendly interview, shall we say. But we decided we need to respond to the issues, and here I am to answer questions and deal with some of the issues.
Okay, let's, in your mind, you've watched the interviews. What are the critical issues?
Look, I think the key thing is that the various points that Mr. Moti made were dealt with in the High Court in Gauteng. And they, one by one, essentially, they were dismissed by the High Court in Gauteng. Firstly, in relation to the ex parte process, one of the issues with the methods that was used by the Moti Group was the fact that they had gone to court in secret without notification to the other side, to us, and obtained an order in secret without the judge hearing us, which essentially would have gag us and would have forced us to disclose our sources, return documents within 48 hours. And the judge in the reconsideration hearing, said that was really a most egregious abuse of the court process. That the application should not have been brought on an ex parte basis, and should certainly not have been ever granted on an ex parte basis. So that's the one issue. I think the second key issue is the question of allegedly stolen documents. Now the judge, again, for the purposes of the argument, he didn't make any finding that the documents were stolen. There is some doubt as to whether, when anybody takes a copy of an electronic copy of something, and you still in possession of your electronic copy, that can constitute theft. That has not been settled in our law. We don't know, but we weren't involved in that process at all. And the judge really found that in the circumstances where a journalist receives confidential information, that cannot in any way be considered an extension of of theft, or an ongoing situation of theft, even if one would to assume that the original action constituted theft. In fact, the judge found that it was in the public interest for journalists to be able to receive contraband information, as he referred to it, and make use of that in the public interest. And I don't think there's anything that we have done in the way we have reported on this story that has not been defined by the public interest and acting, in the kind of best traditions of professional journalism.
Yes, but also, Sam, obviously, all of this is open to legal interpretation in terms of what constitutes theft. And you speak about allegations of theft, what constitutes public interest, and all of that would obviously come out in court in terms of how the court would actually legally interpret what is a public interest. Now, there are a number of issues that were raised during my discussion and during my conversation with Zunaid Moti, and Zunaid Moti obviously had a go at you, saying that Sam Sol is a pathetic example of a journalist. And what I want to do, and I actually don't want to put words in my own mouth, but what I want to do is I would like to play out this video clip, and we can then take it further from here. So I will ask my engineer to play out the first video.
I think there's merit in what you're saying, but I think that a guy like Sam Sol is quite a pathetic example of a journalist as far as my opinion is concerned. I think that he may have started out as being a fantastic journalist, from what I understand. And I've read some of his stuff in the past, and there seems to be have been quite an interesting fellow. I must be fair to the man. You can never just shoot a man down. But he's come along, and because of the narratives that he's been pushing, and you must remember when someone gives you money as a donation, and the last donations, they come with terms and conditions, most of them. So let me stop there. I don't know what those terms and conditions are. But when you talk about becoming a tabloid, yes, they started off and they were gagging me because every time I answer a question, they don't print my answer. They basically say to me, they take an extract of my answer and they say, but Moti said that. They steal my documents. They house my documents like a bunch of thieves overseas, so you can't go to their offices and get them.
Sam, that video
Yeah.
clip it says a lot. How do you respond to that?
Look, I mean, it's really unfortunate that Mr. Moti has personalized this. That hasn't been the feature from our side. And I think my journalistic record speaks for itself. I think in the industry, you could ask anybody about the ethical and professional standards that amaBhungane upholds and that I uphold personally. And I think the test is that in terms of what we published, there was no purchase. It's very easy for Mr. Moti to make these statements, but in fact they're not backed up. We gave an extensive and fair representation of his replies in all our stories, and we put up links to his full answers to our questions, so anybody could go and look and see what did we actually ask, and what did he answer in full. Obviously, it's not possible to carry all of that in an article, but there were links to the full questions and answers. And amaBhungane applies almost the gold standard of right of reply. We put very detailed questions to people when there is an issue that we raise with them. We put the facts that we have at our disposal. We allow them to put contrary information up, to question and our interpretation of the facts, etc. And then we put the article together based on that process. If we had got that egregiously wrong, the Moti Group could have sued us. They didn't. They could have taken us to the press ombud. They didn't until we raised that as a point in our legal papers. So in terms of the the court process so far, there has been no criticism of us. There has been criticism of his side in terms of an independent legal judgment as to what has happened and whether things have happened correctly and in the public interest. Mr. Moti is now applying to the Constitutional Court for direct access, or rather the Moti Group and the applicants, and we'll have to see what happens with that. But at this stage, the independent arbiter that the courts arbitration that the courts make in these matters has been solidly in our favor, and that's not really reflected in his attitude and the impression he's giving.
Yes, but also, Sam, in my discussion with Mr. Moti, has amaBhungane not personalized this? Because Mr. Moti speaks about digging for dirt. And whereas he says that no court in the land has actually found him guilty of anything. And again, when we are talking about public interests, he maintains the fact that the 4,500 documents that are alleged to have been stolen and passed on to you contains a lot of personal information which is not in the interest of the public. And his point is looking at, again, this has become a tit for tat, pointing at fingers at amaBhungane, for example. You're looking at your chair, and we know that obviously there's a cloud hanging over his head in terms of sexual harassment charges. Since amaBhungane did not vet him, yet you accepted him, yet you've taken him in as your chair, you referred to him as your chair, and at this point in time, he still remains officially on the company as a director. And if we're talking about public interest, there should be a matter of public interest where he says a list of detailed questions were forwarded and none of these questions were sent were answered.
No, well, you see, again, the facts that are presented there are quite wrong. There are statements on our website relating to our former chair. We have a board which has
Sorry, you
been.
said former chair, so has he left the company already?
Yes, and if anybody had bothered to go to check the background facts, he tendered his resignation, some months ago. We all know that the CIPC process is bureaucratic and takes some time, so that the online records or whatever take some time to reflect. But legally, that resignation was valid the moment it was accepted by me. I think it's also important to understand this board is a group of volunteers. It meets twice a year for the last 5 years, since long before COVID. It has only met virtually online. And it has no impact or say in amaBhungane's day-to-day business and its editorial direction. It is there to make sure that the funding that we get from the public and from foundations is accounted for and spent correctly. That's its major role. It looks at our budget and it looks at our annual financial statements.
Yes. Now, some of these statements, obviously, that you have made, and with regards to and particularly looking at us at Salam Media. Now, the Media position is very, very clear. We're not in the space of investigative journalism. We are a humanitarian journalism organization. And obviously, the purpose of the conversation with Zunaid Moti is because there was a public interest on what has been playing out between amaBhungane and Zunaid Moti, or the Moti group of company, the court battle. Now, this has been as far as Salam Media is concerned, and I needed to clarify this because the statement that you had made is, if you had done research in the Muslim community, the picture of Mr. Moti is not quite as rosy, and he's treated somewhat of a role model. Now, a person, and we know in law, that a person is only is innocent until proven guilty. We cannot make judgment calls. People can have various opinions. People can have diverse opinions of you, Sam Sol. We can have diverse opinions of myself as well. Some people may see me in a very different light. Now, obviously, to make a statement like this, that even in the Muslim community, I mean, why specifically make reference to a Muslim community?
I think just because Mr. Moti himself made reference. He was talking about in the interview a comedian who had suggested that mothers were warning their children that about him, and he made he made light of it as to where that comes from. And I'm just saying that the difficult questions that you're asking me, and the probing that you're putting to me, perhaps some of that should have been put to Mr. Moti, because this legal battle is important. It is an important test for media freedom in this country. I think it's important to note that all the criticisms that the Moti Group and Mr. Moti have made about the leaks that involve the Moti Group could have been made equally about the Gupta leaks. The kind of attack and attempt to stifle reporting in relation to the Gupta leaks could have been based on exactly the same arguments. And if Mr. Moti is successful, we could look back and say, well, we could have actually had no benefit from the Gupta leaks, because it would have been shut down in the similar way to what he wants to shut down reporting flowing from the Moti files. So it is an important issue, but it's not one that we have personalized, and I think we shouldn't try to personalize it. We should try to deal with the issues, and the issues for our democracy, the issues for business, the issues for the journalism profession, and see objectively, well, who is acting in good faith, who is acting according to professional standards.
But also, Sam, at this point in time, we can't comment on what information has been leaked because we don't know. We don't know what is contained in the 4,500 files that amaBhungane has in the position. So it actually makes it very, very difficult for perhaps anybody in the outside world, not only ourselves, to comment until we know. But Zunaid Moti obviously maintains that there should be confidentiality. He speaks about personal information that could possibly that is contained in those files, and he is concerned about personal information that may be leaked. And we know that there is protection. We've got the POPI Act, we've got the protection of personal information, and all of that. And this is a point that he's spoken about. He speaks about confidentiality, and perhaps just to reinforce what he is saying, I just want to play out what Mr. Moti had to say in this regard.
The issue, and the issue at hand is a simple one. If you steal something and I give it to a reporter, or I give it to an investigative journalist, it does not absolve you of the crime that you committed. Can you imagine for 1 minute what this country would look like if a disgruntled guy or a big attorney firm went and downloaded all their files and disseminated it to the maggots of amaBhungane and the likes? There would be no confidentiality with customers. There would be no privileged information. There would be anarchy in this country.
Sam, you've seen it.
Sorry?
I say you've seen that. You've heard what
Yes,
Zunaid had to say.
yes. I've seen it. And I heard that Mr. Moti referred to us as maggots. So look, I think we have to look at what has been published. As I say, the Gupta leaks contained a whole range of information, and we could have taken the WikiLeaks approach, for instance, and put the entire file of the Gupta leaks up online from an international server where the whole Gupta leaks trove would be accessible by anyone, by members of the public. But in fact, we took a deliberate decision not to do that, despite the fact that we were concerned about the kind of reaction that is now playing out in relation to the Moti files, that where there might be a raid, that we might be dispossessed of that information. And we took the decision not to do that, precisely because the Gupta leaks contained information that was not in the public interest to be made public. And that's what journalists do all the time. They make a judgment call about information that is in the public interest, and if they get that wrong, there are consequences. So it's not a free-for-all, as Mr. Moti is suggesting.
Yes, just Sam, prior to the court case and while all of this was playing out, and perhaps you can provide me with some clarity, what level of communication was there between amaBhungane and the Moti group? Because Zunaid Moti says that we have answered all the questions to the best of our ability. However, it is you that gives me one line answers, and our rights are less than their rights. Now, this is in a video clip again, because I just need to understand in the build up to the court case what has actually been playing out, what level of communication, and more importantly, in terms of the request that have been made from both sides. And Zunaid Moti says that he sent out a lengthy communication to you personally with regards to your chair, personally with regards to the sexual harassment charges, and he's basically got no answers, he's got no response from you. So let's just take a listen to what Zunaid had to say, and then I'll ask you to comment, Sam.
However, when you have 4,500 documents and you start looking at things and taking things out of context, you could create an impression in your mind of one or other thing. So, without asking us the correct questions with the correct documentation that you want to refer to, we cannot answer. But we have answered all of their questions, just by the way, to the best of our ability when they send us something, however cryptic it is. So, you may have a 5-page document and a guy gives you one line out of it. So, what do you want me to say about it? What exactly are you asking me? And then we comment in it and he prints some nonsense text of things. But I think coming back to that particular issue, these rules only apply to us as individuals because our rights, as far as amaBhungane is concerned, are less than their rights because they're journalists. And that is the biggest load of nonsense. That's why this needs to end up at the Constitutional Court.
Well, Sam, you have it. This is now obviously, this is the reason why it's going to end up at the Constitutional Court.
Look, again, that's Mr. Moti's view, and that's his right to try to take this matter further. But I don't think that one should get a sense that these questions have not been answered. They were dealt with and answered in the High Court in Gauteng. But he was not satisfied with those answers. They didn't suit him. And so he's applied for direct access to the Constitutional Court, which is his right. And we will have to deal with that and respond to that. But it's the level of interaction and right of reply that was provided. The judge again referred in his judgment to the extensive quotes that was provided within the stories and the links, etc., and the extensive use that Mr. Moti has made of in relation to public media to get his version across. There's been a public relations campaign from his side, which has far outstripped anything that we've done to put his version across.
Yes, just I know in the interest of time, and we are obviously running out of time. What relationship has the Sentry got with amaBhungane? Because we've heard of a mention being made of the Sentry. In my understanding, and perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the Sentry is there following dirty money connected to African war criminals, and obviously a lot. That we've seen in terms of investigations and as a policy organizations as well in terms of multinationals. They call them predatory networks and that benefit from violence in Africa. What relationship does amaBhungane have with the Sentry?
No, we only got to essentially meet and collaborate with the Sentry on this story. We had no dealings with them before, but because the material that is in our possession or accessible to us is material that they had even before us, and because of our local knowledge, I think they reached out to us to collaborate on aspects of this story. But we have
Yeah.
no formal connection whatsoever. It's a collaboration between journalists, similarly to what we did with the Panama Papers, etc. So that's the history of that relationship.
Yes, but also, just looking at the history, and obviously Africa has got a history of colonization, and then we know the corporate interests, the scramble for Africa, for scramble of African resources, all of that has been playing out in Africa for a very, very long time, and in the interest of corporates right across the entire world. The Americans have an interest, the Europeans have an interest, the Russians, the Chinese, everybody has an interest in Africa, and to a large extent, many of these corporates, we've seen what has taken place in many parts of Africa, where millions of people have been affected, women have been raped in the in the DRC, to get their hands on resources. We've seen child labor. We've seen so much actually happen. And again, at the end of the day, what Zunaid Moti is also saying, and this is in his words, and I'm going to play out this, where he's saying a bunch of white editors place a lot of pressure on black businessmen and seeing them coming through. Now people say, I'm playing the race card. The key issue here is he's got this relationship with Zimbabwe. He's got mining interests. He's got business interests in Zimbabwe. And that seems to have been playing out again. Now, what he's saying is there is absolutely no problem that I'm in business with the Zimbabwean government. And this is the reason possibly where there may be those who may want to enjoy the benefits of Zimbabwe, the benefits of Zimbabwe's resources, the minerals, the rich minerals, and at the end of the day, I am being targeted because I'm a black businessman. Let's play out this clip, and then your comment, and before we terminate this interview.
Other institutions that have come along and supported us as well within South Africa as black people. What concerns me is that I'm seeing something which is unique and something that is a bit concerning, as I just mentioned now. The issue that I'm seeing a bunch of white editors place a lot of pressure on black businessmen. And I'm seeing that coming through now. Now, people may say that I'm using the race card, but I'm not here. I see a bunch of white guys trying to bully me. And I'm not going to let that happen. It's not going to happen on my watch. And they are getting a good understanding of that. I'm fighting for what I believe is correct. I'm giving my perspective very clearly. I'm playing within the rules. But they know better than us out there. But when you talk about Adrian Basson, you talk about Sam Sol, then you talk about the guys that associate themselves with amaBhungane, the Mail and Guardian, all of these type of guys. It's a little club, but it's only that club. Now they're trying to join the whole of Senaf into this thing. And it's quite disingenuous because they have no issue when we have no issue with them.
Yes, I mean, all of that is quite unfortunate, and the context in which you present it. I mean, Mr. Modi's business career has been deeply intertwined with two multinationals that don't have the necessarily the most positive reputation, Glencore and Trafigura, in terms of the whole picture you were painting of resources and the exploitation of African resources. So and it's SANEF joined the court case in the Gauteng High Court as a friend of the court, and they argued very strongly in our favor, in favor of the points that we were making. So this is not about me as a white person and Mr. Moti. It's not about amaBhungane being anti-black. I think we have taken on big business, corporates, banks, Steinhoff, possibly more than any other media house in this country. And there's not a conspiracy. News 24, he refers to Adrian Rousseau. News 24 republishes our stories. That's all they do. There's and as do others, as does the Mail and Guardian, in terms of this series, as does Daily Maverick. We've had publishing partnerships with the other groups as well, Arena. So that's there's no conspiracy. There's no ganging up in this case.
Well, Sam, obviously, we're going to have to leave it at that. Unfortunately, time is of the essence. I'm sure that there is a lot more, but we definitely will follow developments over a period of time. And I'm sure that we will be engaging with each other going forward. But at this point in time, as Mr. Moti has mentioned, that the matter is going to go to the apex court. It's going to go to the constitutional court as well. Let's just see what actually happens. At this point in time, I'm not privy to the fact because I did ask him what was contained in the submission to the apex court, and he says that he's for the Moti group, and it's he can't do that here because he's out of the Moti group. So that's where things stand at this point in time, and we thank you once again for taking time out and obviously giving you this opportunity this morning for the right of reply on behalf of amaBhungane. All the best to you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. White. Bye.
Sam Soul with us this morning from amaBhungane and giving him the right of reply. And yes, we are obviously overdue with the news, and we still have got a fair amount to come from now right until 10 a.m. Stay with us.